Hello and welcome to another episode of AHEPA Talk. Today we have the return of Dean Vonetes, publisher of the AHEPA Yearbook, both for the convention and the commemorative album. Dean, welcome.
Thank you, Dimitri. Glad to be here as always.
So today we want to talk specifically about the ads and what's available. What we really want to know is we have the Supreme Convention coming up for Disney. What do we want to do for our ads? What are the prices on some of these ads? What are the places? What should we be putting in them?
Well, it depends what you're trying to do. Obviously, the chapters, we want the chapters to tell their story. And what's unique about them, their history, the contributions they've made to their communities. Were they instrumental in helping their church to get established, perhaps? Or whatever their relationship with the church or the Greek community in their town, civic projects they've done, scholarships, those kinds of things. And what makes them proud of what their chapters accomplished over the years. Then we switch the tone and go to the Brother AHEPAs. Brother AHEPAs can do a lot of different things. And when I say Brother AHEPAs, I'm talking about everybody in the AHEPA family. But they can do ads commemorating their parents, who may be deceased or may not be. Maybe their grandparents or parents came from Greece or Cyprus or wherever they came from. But whatever connects them to Hellenism, they should tell that story. I mean, that's another avenue to go. What part of Greece they came from, pictures of them when they first came, and really tell their story. Many of them did some pretty tough jobs. They had to learn the language. And yet the theme that we're looking at is of all the nationalities that came to the United States on per capita, the Greek people sent more of their first generation to college than any other nationality that hit the shores of America. And that's a big deal.
Well, in telling those stories, I mean, the headquarters put out this ad sheet. So this would tell you what you can get and
how to do it. Yeah, basically.
So basically, I wanted to talk about this. This is the full page ad. So tell us about that. What do you get for that?
Okay, a full page ad is normally $600. That's a full page. This particular ad that you flipped up here is a full page bleed. If you notice the edge of the ad, this ad goes off the page. The colors are outside the borders. So when it prints, the entire page is the color ad. And in printing terms, we call that a bleed because it bleeds off the edges of the page. Normally, an ad would be in the center of that box and probably have maybe 1/4 of an inch all the way around it.
Okay, so
now sometimes some people will put the ad with a white background and they don't put a border around the ad and it creates the same effect as a bleed. But they can do that for less money because they don't pay the extra costs of doing the bleed.
But the dramatic thing is you get more space to tell your history.
You get more space, you do.
And the way we're doing the ads now is if you buy an ad right now, you'll get it in the convention book and the commemorative book that's following up.
Yeah, what's basically happened, if you buy an ad right now, you're buying the ad in the commemorative album. That's what you're doing. And because you're getting the copy in early and you've bought it early, you're going to get the convention book for free.
Okay. So we've got this, and then we also have, you're doing something special. This is called the Veteran Space. Could you explain about this?
I think this is kind of a neat thing because the Greek Americans fought for their country. But we have lots of veterans. We have veterans that fought in World War II in the Greek army. We have veterans that did in the Canadian Army, all types of things. Anybody who served in the military service that's a relative, living or deceased, and you want to pay tribute to them, they can put their picture, and what we're looking for is their name and branch of service. So if it was Army, Navy, Marine would put that, and then their name. And we prefer, obviously, the picture, we'd like it to be in their uniform of the days when they actually served. And it's kind of a neat thing to do.
Okay.
But we want to show that Americans, that as Greek Americans, we fought the fight.
Now, is it just the American military, or would the Greek military?
No, any Greek, Canadian, wherever they served.
Of course.
If they were in the military, that's what we want.
Okay, because we have members who obviously now who've served in multiple different countries across the AHEPA domain. We don't have just U.S., Greece, Canada. We have...
If they're veterans in their country's armed forces, that's all it takes.
Okay, and then...
In fact, the more different ones we have, I think the more impressive it'll be.
Well, in addition, you talked about education, how we educated the most first-generation offspring. We also have this, which is the business card ad. So I think this is a way we can display the incredible diversity that we have within our membership and our family.
You're absolutely right. This one, I don't know if folks are going to get it right away. When it comes out, they will. It'll be a little late. The ship sailed. But this is amazing here, because this is the proof of the pudding. This is where we are today. We have so many young people who, as we become more blended, you know, it used to be everybody knew their yaya, they knew their Greek, they could say a few words. As we got more Americanized, people like me, I learned to cuss pretty good, but really conversationally, I'm not that good. My wife is much better than I am. My son is less than I am. And I know that his children, if he has some hopefully soon, they will be speaking even less Greek, unless something hits them. But nevertheless, we want to show what they've evolved to, how these children have gone on and become incredible people, doing amazing jobs, all kinds of jobs. Is all you have to do is go to LinkedIn and see the Greek names popping up in the positions some of these young folks have. And this is a way to tell that story. And the books are going to be in libraries, they're going to be online, and they're going to be collector's items. I think many people are going to want them. A lot of people are buying business directory ads in order to get additional books. Like, let's say, an AHEPan puts his family history in the book. That's one page. He gets a book. But if he has 3 kids, he may want 3 copies. Well, if he's a veteran, he could do that and get another book. He could do the business directory and get another book, or do a business directory for his son or daughter or whatever. So it's another way to get an additional book. But it also is telling part of that story that we want to tell, the impact that the American Greek has had in this country. And I'm going to digress real quick. We always talk about the brilliance of the ancient Greeks and what they did and how they were so amazing. I got to tell you, the more I look at this, maybe I'm just stupid, but what I see what the American Greeks did when they came to this country, I can't fathom coming to a country and not knowing the language, not knowing the culture, and be able to not only make a living, but be extremely successful. I speak a little Greek. I would be really challenged to make a living in Greece. And that is frightening. And to pick up roots and just take off, our ancestors were amazing folks, believe me, and we should be very proud of them. That's how I see it.
Well, it's an amazing thing, and this is an example of somebody who bought an ad in another similar book, and they told their whole family story there. And
yeah, he did. And I'll tell you the amazing thing about that. That is what we call really an advertorial. He paid a little extra, and we actually did an interview with him. And little did he know the impact it would have. But in that interview, he talked about how he treated his employees like family. And it resonated, and people really got it, that this was not just a business. This was a culture in the way they approached it. And he was getting more comments off this ad than a lot of things he had done. And so, you know, he was thrilled with it, but it's a unique way to do an ad, but it looks like it's a story.
Well, we have that option available in these books. which is kind of amazing. We also have one other option, which kind of surprised me. You talked about the cover, where we can do the front pages and the back cover. If you could just explain that, because especially on the commemorative album, it's something unique.
Well, the front of the commemorative album, if you can imagine this, it's going to be a padded cover. So it's not like a flat hardback book you get typically at the library. It's got a little bit of a cushion front and back. It'll have the name of the album down the spine in gold, and it'll have the AHEPA seal on the front of the album. And then on the back is an opportunity for a business to put their corporate logo in a gold seal. Now, if it's a private individual, maybe they want their initials or I don't know, whatever. But it's an image, and it will be gold stamped into the back of every album. Well, you can't really say a whole lot in a stamp, but what you do is when you buy that back cover, you also get the 3 pages inside in that price that you can tell your story.
So that's an amazing thing. Now, I also have some examples of some ads that you provided that were typical of people telling their family stories. The first one I have is this, with the 5th generation. I thought that was pretty amazing, and I would encourage people to consider something like this.
Well, this was near and dear to my heart because obviously it's my son. I was a little embarrassed to put it in there, but I wanted to tell that story. And it starts with my great-grandfather at the very top, who I never met. He died before I was born. But his daughter, and as you look at this, she's the one on the left, my yaya, and she married her husband, and they had my mother, who's also on the row below that on the left. And then on the other side are my father's parents out of Binghamton, New York. Of course, they started in Massachusetts and migrated to Binghamton. And my dad was one of 3, and he married my mom. And as a result, I popped up into the world, and I'm down below. But on the right side of my parents are my wife's parents. And believe it or not, Mary Ann's mom went to high school with my dad. And when my mother went to visit up there to visit her in-laws, Helen, my mother-in-law, said, you know, Polly, I got to get you out of the house here. You're going to go crazy. So they became good friends long before Mary Ann and I were ever born. And her dad over there was a HEPA president. My mother-in-law was a district governor of the Daughters. My mother was a district governor of the Daughters, and my father was a Supreme Secretary. So it's an AHEPA family. And then down below are Mary Ann and I. When we got together as 3-year-olds, we used to play together. And when Mary Ann was born, she's a month and a day younger than I am. My mother sent her a little ring to Mary Ann's mom and said, wouldn't it be something if our kids ended up getting married? Well, they did. And the offspring of that is my son, Al. So obviously we're kind of a close-knit family, but it's a story. And yeah, it's a unique one. And I thought that was kind of cool.
Every family has a story to tell. Now,
you bet.
The next example, you have Marathon chapter in Charlotte, North Carolina, I believe. And yeah, that's this one, which they talk about their 100-year history and some of their founders. That's an amazing. And there's 3 of them from them.
Yeah, that chapter, I grew up in District 3. And we always knew, in fact, it's kind of funny. Talk about the AHEPA story. Jimmy Cavalaris, who put that ad in for their foundation, we talked on the phone the other day, and I said, Jimmy, you realize, I think we've known each other at least 59 years, maybe 60 from our days in Sons of Pericles. I kind of think the first convention we went to was 1960 in Miami, but I certainly remember Jimmy at the Baltimore District Convention, probably in 62 or 63. So we've had a long history together. And so I knew the Charlotte chapter was something special. And of course, they've had some Supreme presidents and Supreme officers. Jimmy's mom was a Supreme president or Grand Lodge president of the daughters. And they have a beautiful family story as well. They're a very AHEPA family. I think his father, by the way, was member number 103. Don't hold me to that, but it's pretty close, something like that in the order. And so when I looked at their ad, I was blown away. What that chapter has done and accomplished, wow, what an inspiration. I thought our chapter in Virginia was pretty good. Nothing like theirs.
Well, here
they've got that history, and it's an amazing story they tell. And, you know, if it hadn't been for this book, I don't think many of the brothers would ever know about that story.
Well,
I think that's big.
We have this other ad that they're putting in, the Centennial Banquet, which they had.
There you go. See, that's their foundation. And they are supporting so many things in that ad. I don't remember everything they supported, but I do know one was the AHEPA monument that Chapter 1 put in Atlanta, and they contributed to that. I think they contributed to the educational fund of the Supreme Lodge Order of AHEPA. And if I'm not mistaken, one of those other pictures is the housing. I think they contributed to that, but don't hold me to that. I can't read that ad from here. So
not a problem. And then we have, last but not least, this is just a synopsis of their history and all their past presidents. I mean,
and that's amazing right there.
Yes. And this can be done by any chapter. You just,
absolutely.
You know,
every chapter's got a story.
And they should take the time and put it in. So basically, how do we get a hold of you to get these ads in? What should they be? How should they be formatted? Let's get into some technical stuff as we talk about, you know, what we need to do to get these ads produced.
The ads are pretty simple. It's all you need basically is an idea in a computer, and on an 8.5 sheet of paper, you just leave a 1/4 inch all the way around and go to it. Design what you want to put and how you want to say it. You can drop pictures in, you can put text, you can use colors. But once you get it the way you want it to look, as if you were going to print it out to put it in your own scrapbook or do whatever you're going to do with it, that's where the trick comes. At that point, you want to create a PDF with whatever you've created. And when you go like you would print it to your printer, you go into the printer settings and you change the color. Most standard printers, when you print at home, are RGB. This one, you're going to have to convert to CMYK. It's more pure. It's what commercial printers use. So you'll do that. It'll look a little different, but it'll come out fine. Then you have to be careful that your black is really black. You want to make sure, because the RGB black is not pure black. So it comes out crisper when you make it black. The next step that you do is when you put the photos in that ad, there's a number of formats. There's JPEG, there's TIFF, there's PNG, and there's also BMP. You can debate which is best and which is easier to work with. Our particular printer has recommended that we use a BMP when we do those photos, to convert them from JPEGs, to convert them to BMP. He says we will get better reproduction. I got to go with what he says because he knows his press and he knows, you know, he's the printer. But I don't think it's the end of the world if you can't get a BMP. But if you can, I think your quality should be better.
Now, many of our members will do these files probably in Word and then print it to PDF. I mean, is it okay if they just send you multiple versions of the same file and then you can sort of pick and choose what's the best for you? In other words,
multiple versions?
In other words, you send it as a Word file and a PDF and a JPEG.
No, the actual file should come as a PDF.
Okay.
And the reason being, a PDF can't be changed. It's locked in. And what you see is what you're going to get. That means that we don't have to go into graphic arts to do anything with it. one of two things is going to happen. Either you've got a graphic artist on your end that if you want to take it to that level and get that fancy, most chapters, there are people in their chapter who are knowledgeable enough, or in their family, these young kids, they're all really good at it. They should be able to do it without much problem. And if they need to Google, it'll tell them how. This is not real brain surgery. But if we end up doing it, we're going to turn it to a production company, which goes into graphic artists, and they get paid a lot of money. So it gets expensive. And I don't think you need to do it. Okay. And, you know, I'd like to say I could do it for everybody, but I can't. And I don't know that I'm that good at it. I don't do it every day. But it's not that hard. And the only other thing they have to be cautious of is when you do that PDF, a lot of times your printer, I mean, like mine is set at 600 DPI all the time. But others, it's set at 300. You don't want 300. It should be 600. Now,
for those who don't know, the DPI stands for dots per inch. It means how high the resolution is. Absolutely. In other words, think of how fuzzy do you want this to be. If you print something at 100 DPI, it's going to be kind of fuzzy. 300, it's pretty sharp. 600, it's crystal clear. Yeah, so you want it as clear as possible for posterity.
Yes, and to drive that point home, back in the old days when we used to print newspapers, you'd do a color ad in a newspaper, and if you took a magnifying glass to it that was strong enough, you'd notice that the picture was nothing but dots. And the dots would mix together. And if you wanted orange, you'd mix red and yellow dots to a certain degree, and that would give you orange. So what you saw was not really, everything was done with really cyan, magenta, black, and yellow. I don't even remember now, but I think it's yellow, cyan, and magenta, and black would give you your four basic colors that you used, and that's what did it. Well, it's no different today. It's still all dots is what you're seeing. But when these books are enamel and they're doing the album like we're doing, you'll be hard pressed to see those dots. But that's what it is.
And just to drive it home, hang on a second. This would be similar to what we're expecting for the convention book, right?
That's correct.
A soft cover, but bound somewhat on the edge.
Perfect bound. It's a cover stock. It's a little heavier than the paper inside, but it's a high-level magazine is what it really boils down to.
And this is kind of what we are expecting with the annual album, except it's going to be a puffy
cover
with embossed gold on the front and embossed gold for somebody on the back. And by the way, this is 1961 in Miami, just in case, because you mentioned it.
Yeah.
I mean, and traditionally, we've always done hardcover books. This is 1938, and people collect these. And when the commemorative album comes out, I expect it to be much the same way. And people show off. Oh, look, here I am back in the day. This is my great whatever, And they're talking
about... Hey, that
about
1938, that was New Orleans, right?
No, this is actually San Francisco, 1955.
No, I mean the one before you said it was 38. Wasn't that New Orleans?
That is, in fact, New Orleans. You are correct.
You know what's big about that one? The Supreme Lodge there of the Sons of Pericles took on the project of doing the first translation of the Greek language of the liturgy into English. Think where our church would be today if we didn't have the translation, those little books in the pews. And that was the first stab of it in 38. And some of the people that were at that convention that did that, I know because my dad was there, but it was Nick Strike, Jim Schofield, and there's others that I think George Margolis. And these names resonate. They're all major factors in the order of AHEPA.
See, that's the kind of history we want in this album.
It's amazing.
The Sons are like unsung heroes because you never know about things like the translation. Me personally, I was shocked when the entire Sons Supreme Lodge donated to the AHEPA 5K recently. I mean, the Lodge donated. That was wonderful. And I think it's to be applauded and recorded for posterity. Okay, so the bottom line is everybody needs to get their ad together so they can either put a full page, something for their veterans, something for their business. Consider doing something big if they want to really talk into their family or their chapter. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is to tell your story. So
you're absolutely right. And I hope everybody does it, because it will be an amazing product if we all do what we can to make it that way.
The deadline is coming up fast. If you need to contact Dean, contact him through headquarters in Washington or through the...
You can contact me directly. I'll give you my email. It's DAV.
Yeah, well, we'll put your contact information in the description.
Put it on there. Great.
Yeah, that way, you know, you can... We'll have it directly. Also, you have a website.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And that's easy. That's www.ahepaalbum.com.
So AHEPAalbum.com. And you've got all this and tells you what to do.
You got it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. We'll see you next time on AHEPA Talk.
Thank you.